The first time I came in here, I was kind of weekend searching for my weekdays of working in a black and white photo lab. I would go out to looking for museums inspiration, and I came into the De Rosa Preserve, and I walked into Gallery 1, and there it stood, father of darkness, mother of madness, and the gather of birds. And I got chills. I was really like, wow, because you're in a setting, really well, tasteful gallery. Renee whoever was the designer, wonderful taste, right? Gallery 1 is beautiful. You walk in, you see the lake. Anyway, I was so inspired, I left that day and went home and made art. And I just, there was no dream in my mind. I got a show at the De Rosa Preserve. I can always dream, but I could go home and make art, and I did. And it was absolutely inspired by that piece. And then I went up here and I saw many other pieces that it was just all too much. It just flowed in.
And then you worked with David Best later on, right?
I grew up with David Best. So David Best is from Petaluma, not originally, but he was there when I was a kid. And so I'd see his house down on D Street, and he would have these big plastic horses out on his lawn, and something was going on. I was a kid, and art speaks to children the most. I think that is so great when kids see it and they're moved and they get inspired. But I was inspired by his work, and in so many ways, and grew up and saw the piece here and that is David's, and then went to sort of pursue and follow and see, to learn from him. And one of the things we did was go to Burning Man and build one of his temples. It was just a little one guy building with David. But that was incredible. And it brought me out to Burning Man where, the canvas is huge. And you're watching, how do you get these kind of things done? And it was an absolute dream and a pipe dream at that point, just to how will I do this? This is wonderful. There's just no other place you can build a 60-foot temple of such irreverence, and people love it and they dig it. And, you don't have to. It's not Sausalito Art Festival. But that was great, and that kind of started my career out there and building these temples. Also, this piece here, Fire at the Triangle Factory. This was a piece I saw, and it actually changed my whole, because I was 100% into darkroom photography, one of 35 prints, but I always strive for more. I wanted something you could walk into, something that was like a portal into the pictures, the portraits I was taking, and this seemed to be it. I could take my portraits and three-dimensionalize them, and it was just so inspiring. So it started building frames where I'd have my portraits of people and then build out frames. Absolutely inspired by this piece, the trim, and just the building of it blew my mind, all the little boxes. And
so you saw that here, or you saw it at David Best's studio?
No, I saw that here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I never really went to David. David wasn't 100% about being followed and showing his stuff, unfortunately, because that would have been great. But he just had a different philosophy. He may have changed, and I think he has, but he just sort of thought didn't want to give away secrets and stuff. So what I learned from him is I want to give all my secrets away. I want everybody to do it. This is not mine. This is just something that obviously a chain of art, And so when people come, I'm just this is how I do this. Do you have anything to bring to this table, Shelley, that I work with? And she's just teaching me this and that. We're learning and we're sharing. And that's what it's about, to share. So bringing this here, I hope people just have the wonder, what is this, as they go inside in the mystery. But many of the pieces connect to De Rosa. Inside there's sort of a cloaked figure that was inspired by the piece that I saw in Gallery 1 that we talked about. It's kind of the mystery of a face being in a shroud, kind of like blind justice. And as I worked on this piece for 2 months in the studio, I started to think about Veronica De Rosa, because this, and then how it used to be called Renee and Veronica de Rosa Preserve or whatever. And I just thought, wow, she really needs to get some props here, because although Renee did such a great thing and we love him, but it was a lot of male influenced artists, and so she made beautiful art.
And it's kind of like a shrine to like mothers and motherhood.
Motherhood,
right?
yeah, because it has my partner Natalia and my baby in there, and it's on. Poppy it's the last breastfeeding, so she was 2 years old. She knew it, and you can see it in her eyes. It was the last thing. It brings tears to my eyes, just kind of like that feeling of just like when you know you have to let go, even as a young child, So that moment was that moment as a true. Thing that we all do. And then on the other side, you'll see it's a picture of myself working on one of these pieces. And in the back shadows, there's my alter ego. So playing with that sort of lightness and darkness. All the
very De Rosa.
Yeah, very De Rosa. Yeah, I mean, he would allow something like this. The reason this is here is because he allowed a place like this to be, this sort of folky, irreverence.
Can we back up, Twyla?
Sure.
Can you tell a little bit more about? So what? This is an activation. This is part of something new for here in Gallery 2. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, something we're calling De Rosa projects. And so this is the first De Rosa project, and it's an invitation to artists to respond to the collection in kind of an artist-led gallery activation. In which artists are making work in direct response to the collection. So we hope that this will kick off a whole series of De Rosa projects in that vein.
Amazing, yes.
And so, Michael, you're responding to some of the things that you've been talking about so far.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's when I got this sort of assignment. We started talking about this. I immediately started to just brainstorm what the De Rosa meant to me and how much it inspired me, and the space, and how it would be nice to build like a temple that you could walk inside and have an experience, and even like the music playing is. I started to think, it's a lot about just the chain of artists, how one artist is inspired by another and they build something and the next and the next and the next, and that to me is just so beautiful. And so the music is like Mozart, so I'm just working and I'm getting inspired. So there Mozart's talking to me, even though he's long dust.
Yeah. Is that going to be part of this experience?
Yeah, it's playing right now,
okay.
And it's going to play the whole time.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's good.
That's cool.
I have a question for you. I think you alluded to this more, but could you talk more about your background as a photographer and how your
Yes.
practice became sculptural?
Yes. I think that in my heart, I was always wanting to build things and be a sculptor. My parents were in black and white photography business before digital had became so prevalent. So I, 10 years was in a dark room, which I think adds to like a lot of my tableaus that you see. They're dark, and I mean I've spent many years in a dark room just like using my hands and printing pictures, but really wanting to do something more, but I learned how to print and print emotionally and to take pictures with people, and I love that. So the next step was to build sculptures that were photographic. And I mean, when I saw this, I mean, it really said, oh, you take wood and it's a way to clad it. It's a way to make it beautiful. This is all plywood, all of it. But then it's clad with paper, and photographs are like, lit, three-dimensional. So it's like you get so much out of just a couple layers of a flat object. And it starts to fluff and it starts to, do something. And I feel like I'm just at the beginning. I want to do ceramic photographic sculptures so that you can have them outside. So you do glazes on ceramics and photos. Yeah, it would be cool. And then you can wash it and, yeah.
So on that note, can you talk about the materials and the process of making this?
Yes. So I mean, this is a fully plywood piece with structural lumber. And so each sheet of plywood is glued with water and wood glue to the piece, rolled on, dried, jigsawed, painted black each corner, So trying to disguise the plywood as much as one could. But I love that it's just made out of pretty relatively cheap material for inside. I mean, it is. It's perfect for Burning Man. A week in glory, and then or inside here is wonderful. But it's also the real question, I think, even for how David's piece that was in Gallery 1 that we talked about, they get old. And then where do they go? But I mean, that's why, but we build them in a labor of love. I mean, we don't think, I sort of think about, like, where does it go?
That's what's cool about Burning Man is that it's like a sculpture that's like meant to be burned.
Yeah,
It's like
you let it go.
ephemeral piece
It's
of
ephemeral
work.
piece. You let it go. It's like a sand mandala. You make all this. You put all this energy into it, and then you let it go. Now, of course, these days with your iPhone, I hold all those sculptures in my phone because people took a million pictures of them, which is fine. That's like Andy Goldsworthy. He goes out. He'll say, "How could he? Look, he builds all these things out of nature, but he's also a photographer, and he photographs each piece, and that's why we have all those Andy Goldsworthy books."
Yeah.
And that's the art piece in the end, is that process, because it's supposed to be blown away,
Is that what's going to happen with this piece? It's going to be burned? Or?
That's what I want. I even mentioned it to Katie. No, not
Y'all
you,
still
Katie,
discussing
but
this?
Katie. You'll never know. That would be an option. I'd love that. But that's like, yeah, I did. So we got it. That's like a huge deal getting the fire department on and everything. But wouldn't that be amazing? That would bring people here. And kind of finish the piece. One thing we could do is we could give away pieces of it too, like the art of it, so that it's not just like throwing it all away or burning it all. It's like people could take, I'm sure someone would want to hang a mushroom or a butterfly or a wing. I would do if I didn't make it. I never want to see it again personally. No.
That kind of like speaks to like part of the ethos of Burning Man too. Like it's like a communally participatory endeavor.
Give the art away.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do with this piece that's coming up. We're going to find out on the day of the opening here, on my birthday, if we got Burning Man. And all the panels will be built like David's piece here. And when the burn comes, we're going to take them off and give them to the crowd.
Cool.
Just so they can take it to the camp, take it home, whatever, sell it on eBay. I don't care. You can have it for free.
And so the Josens have, sort of just for biographical information, you've done a few big things at Burning Man, and one of the biggest is the Totem of Confessions.
Totem of Confessions in 2015, and the year before it was Photo Chapel, and then the year before that was a 20-foot, 40-foot long word that said ego, which was perfect.
That then you burned.
And we burned it, but it was covered in small plaster of Paris sculptures. So they didn't burn, so people could take out of the burned relics one of the part of their ego.
And then another thing that's like very Burning Man about this is that it's like the work of a big community, right? Like it's not just your work. So then there are
Absolutely, people come to help and work.
So maybe you could point out some places where they could see like the work of some of your collaborators.
Yes, you can see Shelley here is like the most amazing painter. So in there you'll see the keeper of Evermore is painted by Shelley, the lips and the white skin and these eyes. And then up there, even Veronica is painted by Shelley. And she has so much to teach me about painting and filming.
What about the door?
The door is a kind of also an homage to, I think, David in a way, but also like Keen Holt and different assemblage artists, tramp artists. Could even be these pieces.
How so?
How so?
Yeah.
Found objects, this, as I start working with just patterns. Bree sat through all of this with me, like trying to figure out what we're going to put there. And we're just grabbing out of the studio, like, well, this, maybe this, no, that's lame, da-da-da, until it just gels, it starts to make sense. Like, I love the idea that you can knock on Christ. That was nice. And then, then I thought, some wine, because we all, holy water. And then the spine, it's just like if you see us constantly making this is like a labor of love, lifting things up on top of things. So just breaking our back, but happily. And then the candle is like, burning that candle on both sides and the finger. Anyway, so these are all kind of symbols. The axe could be, a funny joke. and then the heart, you know. This is all definitely a labor of my heart.
That word pattern definitely seems important the more I see it. There's like a lot of pattern
patterns,
play.
yes. And you know, I mean, when you start doing this thing, you always want to like rhythm perfectly, and then as you made pieces that are rhythm perfectly and perfectly balanced, you start getting so bored of that, and you want a sort of offset pattern. Anyway, that's like just what goes through my head. I could change my mind next week, but I feel like you want it to have a rhythm, you want it to have a pattern, but then also it's fun to break it, break the rules, right? If it works. And if it doesn't work, you just like it doesn't work. But then it could work for you, and then, but that's all subjective, I don't know. Right? Bree, I go to Bree.
She's the pattern person?
She's just really, she's like, she's good. She's like, that's not good. And I appreciate it. I listen. But in the end, I mean, the buck stops here.
Well, I think we're at 15 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But is there anything else that you'd want to communicate, or that you would want volunteers to communicate to our guests?
Yeah, I mean, the stained glass was I always like to use stained glass because the colors splash around, and I thought it would be great for this room where it was originally meant to be. It doesn't really matter, but I thought maybe the skylights would play through there. Luckily, there's lights here, and we were able to light, and it's even more of an effect. The room is splattered with light. If you take a look in there, it's just very effective. So, yes, and you know what? It's probably inspired by the church. That's it. And the hands on the side, they're definitely inspired by the hands in the garden, right? It all is peripheral as I'm doing this. I'm like, because it does make sense now. I don't know why I chose to do those hands, but it makes sense now. Because I'm thinking about De Rosa and like all the different things. That's it. I mean, totally, those hands are famous here. I should have done a tall file cabinet. Is that still running?
Yeah, it's still out there. Yeah.
That looks great, Shelly. Gosh darn it. Yeah, I think so. It's just cool. Things like that too, just like the next layer is the layer. We could probably go on forever, but it's it's like put a fork in us.
How'd you pick like the egrets and the animals?
By feeling, yeah. I mean, the cat is my cat. The wing thing was just made today, like just off random things. I knew I wanted it covered in animals.
Why?
Because I was inspired by Gaudi on that. Just seeing Sagrada Familia, everything is so nature based, and that's like, I'm pretty much a skeptic except when it comes to art. That's where my spirituality is. I believe in nature. It seems to be pretty self-evident. It's like in us, we are nature. And
did you ask about color and why he uses so much black and white?
it comes from my family being in a black and white photo business. So I just have always used black and white, and I love how it reminds me of those were the topiary books or whatever. Just these old books that were like pictures of flowers and stuff. And then you cut those out and make those pop-out books. So I mean, it rhythms off of that, but I think also that piece as well. I mean, look how well black and white works.
Yeah.
Your eye's not popping so much off color, and then you can throw a splash in, and it really, accents it well.
It's kind of similar to the geisha piece with the splash of red.
Yes.
That big painting.
Oh yes. Yeah. That's a geisha.
Yeah.
Okay. That one. Okay. Yeah.
Black and red. It was order and chaos.
Oh, it seems to be order and chaos.
Yeah.
He taped off this line, and then he just like boom.
Yeah.
But it does say like what we're kind of always doing is like taking things and trying to make order out of nature, And if you look at like nature's patterns, they aren't perfect. And that's kind of with that door. I was thinking that too. Like every move I wanted to make, I kind of like said, nope. Let's just put a thing there that other way. Anyway, no one cares. In the end, it came together as pattern. But it's definitely sloppier than I've ever done. And I love it. Because it's the close to the door is really pretty. It's got a lot of color going on in there.
Yeah.
It's a piece alone, I think. Like I would hang it, and I feel like so happy about it because it's something new that I've done. Whereas I feel like a lot of this is playing off other things, but you always love to find something new and be like, yes.
Is the stained glass new?
I've always thrown stained glass in my Burning Man pieces because it works so well out there. It's natural lighting for the daytime. The sun is so brutally hot, so I've always done stained glass.
Can you explain a little bit about your thinking behind the Keeper of Evermore? Because I think we're going to get questions about her. And why does she have tarot cards?
Yeah, the Keeper of Evermore is kind of like, she's like fate. She's like judgment. She's like, she's blinded because she's not, she's, oh God, I want to like word it just right. She is the keeper of all fate. And in there you see the Empress, and you see the Magician, and you see the Tower, which like we're all ending up on our way to a metaphorical tower. And she holds this, and she sees this. I don't know.
And you have a whole tarot thing, right? Because
We made a tarot cards.
We should have those at the opening.
Absolutely.
The tarot reader.
Sell them in the museum store.
Yeah.
That would be good, yeah. So we have a bunch from the museum store. I could invite a tarot reader. That would be really fun. You call it right now, I remember. Are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And I'll think of a little bit better description of Evermore. She is the keeper of everything. Though. She's just the feminine.
She's kind of the mother bride.
She's
figure,
the mother
right?
bride, sure. I mean, she's all those. I mean, she's the all-seeing. What do you think, Shelley? Maybe you can.
Well, I think partly she's seeing with her inner wisdom rather than just relying on her visual perception.
Yeah.
To that's kind of what I thought you were.
Yeah.
Why did you do the tarot deck?
Oh, because it was kind of a dare out at Burning Man 10 years ago. That because it's a very, very big thing to tackle. It's 78 cards with really powerful symbols. How do you get 10 swords, 10 cups that are great? You know, so I mean, the props alone are like almost so overwhelming. But then when I realized that I could take a picture of a sword, and print out a sword on plywood and photograph that, and it looks exactly like a sword. That was when the moment was like, I can do this. And so I started building props that I couldn't get out of plywood. So if it was a crow, I mean, that crow photographs, if I put that in my hand like this, it looks like I'm standing with a crow. And even if it's not, it's just like, it is a crow.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got that, I knew that I could tackle the tarot.
Cool.
But I mean, I'm a skeptic, but I think the tarot is good for skeptics and mystics. You know, it has something for everybody.
Yeah.
Because I've always been like, because the Led Zeppelin cover has the hermit on it, you know, and we all seen the Fool. And we know these things, most of us, peripherally from our pop culture knowledge. So it was nice to tackle it.
I don't think of you as a skeptic at all.
Oh yeah, well, my dad's a skeptic, and my mom's a mystic.
Uh-huh.
So somewhere in the middle, the humor is there, right?
Yeah.
I love magical, spiritual stuff, but I also want to take it with a grain of salt. Like, I'm not
Don't
following.
take it too seriously.
I'm not going and joining a cult. I mean, we still have to brass tacks it too, right? Like, things get done because you do things. But also, magic things happen. I mean, this shit fit in here, and I didn't measure it. I mean, if you look at that, that is perfect. The thing is touching the I-beam.
No.
Any taller, no good. It was almost just incredibly magic. Of course, I went and cut 2 feet off of it. If we had put,
Did you?
yeah, I did.
You did?
Yeah, because it was built for back there. And then when I went in, I was like, we are so close. It was built for the center of the gallery back there, so it could be 20 feet. This is 17, which is still big.
Yep.
I mean, it's fine. It fits right here. If you could mood light this place, oh wow. Now, will those lights be on back there? Why do they need to be on for the show?
They don't need to be on for the show.
That might be nice because it's just the eyes. If there's no reason for it,
I'm
we'll
not
see how
sure
it
about
looks.
how the track light
If they're
works.
connected,
Yeah.
you can. But yeah, that's a lot of work.
We'll see if we can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Whatever your thoughts are, but that is an idea because it doesn't seem like you can control a lot of mood here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except
So
for
keep in
painting
mind,
walls.
we're going to keep that. We're going
That's
to
gonna be closed off.
wall, and it's going to be black.
Oh, cool.
I'll send you
That's
an
kinda
image
neat.
of that.
That's
so I think
very
that's an
neat.
important reference.
That's going to
piece.
be very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Can I ask you some questions?
Yes.
So, curatorially, what is different, or what did you do in preparation for this specific activation? Like, I see some new works that we hadn't seen in here in the last rotation.
I would say we worked with Michael to identify artists and pieces that were
Important to him.
and in dialogue with his practice.
Yeah.
And then,
And we reviewed it with him before we actually started installing things here.
yeah.
it was a conversation with him.
Yeah. Could you talk about like this piece here?
Yeah, that's
Bruce Conner.
Blind Man's Bluff by Bruce Conner, and it's a tapestry produced at Magnolia Editions in 2003 from an engraving that Conner did in 1987. And what I really like about it is that if you kind of look at it casually, it just looks like a Renaissance tapestry, like you'd see at the cloisters or something. But when you look closer, you see there's like a kind of a science fiction alien narrative happening in it. So it seemed like kind of a
It's very contemporary in that way.
and a similar kind of like mixture of sacred and profane, kind of as you see in the. And that idea of sacred and profane was a kind of a key concept in our discussions with Michael about the connecting points between his work and the collection. So there were part of the conversation was like, yeah, this kind of identifying thematic points of connection between his practice and the collection. So one was sacred and profane, and one was
I
I
wasn't
don't know.
following you, but
but sacred and
I was
profane.
thinking how much so many of the artists in the De Rosa collection influenced Michael, and he probably spoke about that. But that was a huge, important reason that we selected him to be our first project artist.
And then another reason too is that I've always been interested in like kind of the connection between the De Rosa collection and the Burning Man community, because like, you know, David Best and Brian Tedrick and several other people that are in the collection were early Burning Man artists, and it always seemed to me like a lot of the kind of like ethos of Burning Man kind of like rhymes with the collection of, or with the ethos of De Rosa. Like for example, the kind of like interest in like funky assemblage and the kind of like ephemeral attitude towards the work, like that it not like treating artwork as this like sacred object, but as kind of
Precious.
kind of having more of a casual attitudes towards it, and the kind of irreverent, funky
Experience.
and also anti-capitalistic and kind of communal elements of the Burning Man ethos kind of seemed to me like so you can see how Burning Man kind of grew out of the Bay Area that De Rosa was collecting from.
Anti-establishment.
Yeah. Anti-institutional, radical free expression, decommodification.
So the other piece here, some of our volunteers should be familiar with this, but this hasn't been on view for a while. Could you just say a few words about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire?
The historical event or the piece?
Both.
Well, I've always been interested as a historical matter in this historical event from like, I don't know the year, like 1919 or something like that. I should look it up. But it was like a landmark moment in like labor history, because this kind of like sweatshop in Manhattan, there was like a mass casualty event, so it's like always referenced in like labor politics, and it's like a touchstone for like the idea that there should be like labor protection. So it's like kind of a socialist piece, which I always thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
And
You never know.